When people talk about love stories, they often picture grand gestures, candlelight dinners, and perfect beginnings. But sometimes the most powerful love stories are born from places of pain, struggle, and unexpected encounters. This is the story of a man who had already faced the heartbreak of losing the woman he once promised forever to, a man who was left to raise his little daughter alone, while carrying the heavy responsibilities of running a multi-million-dollar company. His name was Ethan Hayes, a 38-year-old CEO who had built his empire from scratch. To the world, he was a brilliant, focused businessman with a sharp mind and an unshakable reputation. But behind closed doors, Ethan was simply a father trying to give his 7-year-old daughter Lily the happiest childhood he could, even as he wrestled with loneliness that often crept in during the quiet hours of the night. It was one particularly cold autumn evening in the city, when fate decided to change Ethan's life forever. He had stayed late at the office, as he often did, reviewing contracts while most of his employees had already gone home. By the time he finally stepped out into the crisp night air, the streets were nearly empty, lit only by flickering street lamps. As he walked to his car, parked a little farther down the block, he noticed a figure curled up near the steps of a closed cafe. At first, he thought it was just a pile of blankets someone had left behind. But as he came closer, he realized it was a young woman sitting on the concrete, shivering and clutching a torn backpack to her chest. Something about her caught his attention. Maybe it was the way she kept her head down, as if she wanted to disappear, or the way her thin shoulders trembled in the cold. He could have walked past her. After all, in a busy city, it wasn't unusual to see someone struggling on the streets. But something stopped him. He hesitated, then stepped closer and asked softly, "Hey, are you all right?" The girl startled at the sound of his voice, as if she hadn't expected anyone to notice her. She looked up, and for the first time, Ethan saw her face illuminated by the nearby streetlight. She couldn't have been older than 20. Her eyes were striking, a mix of fear and defiance. But behind them was a deep exhaustion, the kind that only comes from nights of sleeping on sidewalks, and days of wondering where the next meal would come from. She didn't answer him right away. Instead, she muttered, "I'm fine," her voice hoarse and brittle. Ethan could tell she wasn't fine at all. He noticed the worn-out sneakers on her feet, the way her jacket was far too thin for the dropping temperature. He knelt down to meet her eyes and asked again, "Do you have somewhere to go tonight?" She shook her head slightly, trying to look away. "Look," she said, her voice breaking, "I don't want trouble. I just need to get through tonight." Ethan hesitated. He wasn't the kind of man who easily opened up to strangers, and bringing someone off the streets into his life wasn't something he'd ever imagined himself doing. But in that moment, something about the girl's quiet desperation stirred something protective in him. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out his wallet, and handed her a few bills. "Here," he said, "get yourself something warm to eat." She looked at the money, but didn't reach for it. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you, but I'm not asking for charity." That simple response struck him. It wasn't pride that made her refuse the money. It was dignity, the kind most people overlooked in someone who had lost almost everything. Ethan realized then that what she needed wasn't just a handout. She needed a chance. After a pause, he said, "Come on, I'm not leaving you out here tonight. I know a place where you can stay warm." The girl's eyes widened with suspicion. She didn't know him. She had learned the hard way not to trust strangers. "Why would you help me?" she asked quietly. Ethan didn't have an answer that made sense even to himself. All he could say was, "Because everyone deserves a safe place, especially tonight." Her name, he later learned as they drove in silence toward his home, was Aria. She had aged out of the foster care system at 18 and had spent the last few years bouncing between low-paying jobs and temporary shelters, until a series of misfortunes had left her on the streets. She didn't share much more than that at first, but Ethan could sense the weight of her story in the way she kept her gaze fixed on the passing city lights outside the car window. Bringing Aria into his home that night wasn't a decision Ethan made lightly. His house was large but quiet, a reminder of the life he once shared with his late wife. Lily, his daughter, was asleep when they arrived, and as Ethan led Aria to the guest room, he felt a strange mix of uncertainty and hope. He left her a clean towel and a warm blanket, and told her she could stay as long as she needed to get back on her feet. The following morning, Lily woke up to find a stranger in the kitchen. At first, she was shy, hiding behind her father's arm, but Aria smiled gently and said hello. Something about Aria's presence, perhaps, the kindness in her voice, or the way she helped set the table, eased Lily's initial hesitation. Within a few days, the little girl began to follow Aria around the house, asking her to help with puzzles and to read bedtime stories. Asterisk. Ethan watched these interactions from a distance, feeling a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. For so long, his life had revolved around work and his daughter's needs. He hadn't realized how much the house had lacked laughter and the gentle presence of another adult until Arya arrived. Asterisk. Over the weeks that followed, Arya began to settle into a routine. She offered to help around the house, cooking simple meals and helping Lily with her homework. Ethan, initially wary of blurring the lines between helping her and involving her in his personal life, found himself drawn to the quiet strength she carried. Despite everything she had been through, Arya had a way of finding small moments of joy in baking cookies with Lily, in watching the sunrise from the porch, in planting flowers in the garden. Asterisk. Their bond grew slowly, almost Ethan found himself sharing stories about his past, about the company he had built, and the challenges of being a single parent. Arya, in turn, began to open up about her own past, the struggles of growing up without a stable family, the dreams she once had of becoming a teacher, and the nights when she wondered if life would ever get better. Asterisk. The media eventually caught wind of the story, the wealthy CEO, who had taken in a homeless young woman, and the headlines were relentless. People whispered, judged, speculated. Some accused Arya of having ulterior motives, while others painted Ethan as a savior, trying to fix someone else's life. Through it all, they both chose to ignore the noise, focusing instead on the small world they were building inside the walls of Ethan's home. Asterisk. One evening, about 6 months after that first encounter on the cold street, Ethan came home early to find Arya in the backyard with Lily. The two were laughing as they tried to catch fireflies in the soft glow of dusk. It was such a simple scene, but something about it struck Ethan deeply. He realized that what he felt for Arya had grown far beyond gratitude or admiration. It was love, a quiet but undeniable love that had taken root over months of shared moments and unspoken understanding. Asterisk. Confessing his feelings wasn't easy. Ethan was a man who dealt in facts and figures, not emotions. But one night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, he finally said, Arya, I don't know how to explain this, but you've changed this house. You've changed me. I can't imagine my life without you in it. Asterisk. Arya was silent for a long moment, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Finally, she whispered, I never thought I'd have a place where I belonged. But you and Lily, you've given me that. Asterisk. Their love story wasn't the kind that unfolded with dramatic declarations or grand gestures. It was built quietly, through trust, kindness, and the slow healing of old wounds. When they eventually announced their engagement, the world was shocked. Some still questioned their motives, but those who truly knew them saw it for what it was. A story of two people who had found each other against all odds. Asterisk. On their wedding day, Lily stood between them as they exchanged vows, her small hands clasped in theirs. To her, Arya wasn't just her father's new wife. She was the person who had brought warmth and laughter back into their lives. Asterisk. Ethan often said that success in business had taught him to see opportunities where others saw risks, but it was love that had taught him the value of taking a chance on people. Arya, who had once been invisible to the bustling city streets, became the heart of the home he had thought would always feel empty. Asterisk. Their journey wasn't perfect. They faced challenges like any other couple, balancing work and family life, overcoming lingering doubts, dealing with the public scrutiny, but they faced them together. Over time, their story inspired many, reminding people that love can be found in the most unexpected places and that kindness can change the course of someone's life. Asterisk. And so, the tale of the single dad CEO and the girl he once found shivering on a city street became more than just a headline. It became a testament to the idea that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories are not about fairy tale beginnings, but about the courage to open your heart to someone when you least expect it.